Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever felt that sting when your own child talks back, ignores you, or dismisses your words as if they don't matter? It's painful. It can make you question yourself as a parent, and anger naturally rises in moments like that. But here's the truth: anger rarely builds respect. It usually tears it down. So, when your children do not respect you, don't get angry. Instead, shift your approach. Let me share with you 4 powerful steps that can transform those moments of disrespect into opportunities for growth, connection, and stronger family bonds. Before we begin, if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any video. Number 1, stay calm and hold your ground with dignity. When your child speaks to you in a way that feels disrespectful, it's natural for anger to rise up inside. The words sting, your pride gets bruised, and part of you wants to snap back immediately. But here's the thing: if you meet fire with fire, the flames only grow higher. Respect cannot be forced through shouting, nor does it grow in the shadow of fear. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is stay calm and hold your ground with dignity. It may sound simple, but in practice, it is one of the strongest displays of leadership you can ever show your children. Calmness is not weakness. In fact, it takes far more strength to hold your emotions steady than to let them explode. When you stay calm in the face of disrespect, you're sending a silent message. I am in control of myself no matter what you do. Children may roll their eyes, slam a door, or talk back, but when you don't mirror their behavior, you break the cycle of conflict. Instead of becoming part of the storm, you become the anchor. Think of it this way: if a teenager slams the door because you ask them to clean their room, and you respond by yelling louder than the door slam, what happens? The focus shifts from their behavior to your reaction. Suddenly, they're no longer thinking about their actions. They're reacting to yours. But if you respond calmly, perhaps by saying, "I don't appreciate that, and we'll talk when you're ready to speak respectfully," you've held your dignity. You've shown them that their outburst does not control you. That moment of restraint plants a seed that will grow into respect over time. There's also a psychological element to this. When you stay calm, you create space for reflection. Children, especially older ones, are constantly testing boundaries, sometimes without even realizing it. They want to see how far they can push before you break. If they see that your emotions are easily triggered, they learn that pushing buttons is a way to gain power. But when you don't give them that reaction, the game ends. You remove the reward. Calmness robs disrespect of its energy. At the same time, holding your ground is equally important. Calmness alone doesn't mean letting things slide. Dignity requires that you make it clear what behavior you will and will not accept. For example, if your child interrupts you with sarcasm, you don't just ignore it. Calmly pause and say, "I'd like to finish speaking, and then I'll listen to you." This does 2 things: models respectful communication, and it reaffirms your authority without aggression. Children may resist in the moment. Deep down, they're learning something essential: that you can be firm without being cruel. Real life example of this comes from a father who was constantly challenged by his teenage son. The boy often used sharp, dismissive tones, especially during disagreements. At first, the father tried yelling louder, but it only fueled more defiance. One day, he shifted his approach. The next time his son spoke disrespectfully, he stayed calm and simply said, "I want to hear what you're saying, but not in that tone. When you're ready, we'll continue." He walked away. At first, the son rolled his eyes, but gradually, the pattern changed. Why? The father showed that his self-control was stronger than his son's temper. Over time, the son mirrored that self-control. The lesson here is that dignity is your greatest shield. Children might forget your lectures, but they never forget the way you carried yourself in difficult moments. By staying calm, you show them that respect is not just something you demand. It's something you live. And when you hold your ground without losing your composure, you prove that true strength is not about overpowering others, but about mastering yourself. That example, more than any lecture, will teach them what respect really means. Number 2, model the respect you want to receive. Children are like mirrors. They may not always do what you say, they almost always do what you show. If you want them to speak kindly, listen attentively, or treat you with respect, the most powerful place to start is with your own behavior. Modeling respect is not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. It's about demonstrating, day in and day out, the very qualities you hope to see reflected back at you. Think about it: if you demand respect while shouting, insulting, or dismissing your child, the message gets lost. What they hear is not the words, but the tone, the energy, and the attitude. Over time, they begin to mimic it. On the other hand, when they see you treating them, your spouse, neighbors, or even strangers with courtesy, it becomes their standard of interaction. Respect, after all, is learned through observation before it is practiced through action. There's a powerful story about a mother who made it a point to always greet people with kindness. Whether it was the mail carrier, the cashier, or the janitor at her child's school. She didn't do it to make a show of it, it was simply who she was. Years later, her son, now grown, was seen doing the very same thing without ever being instructed. That's the quiet magic of modeling. Children absorb more from what they witness than from what they are told. This applies especially in moments of conflict. If your child raises their voice, you raise yours even higher. You're teaching them that volume equals authority. But if you respond calmly and firmly, showing them that strength is not about shouting louder, but about staying steady under pressure. For example, when your child says something harsh, instead of snapping back, you might say, "I'm listening to you, but I expect us to speak respectfully to each other." That moment demonstrates boundaries without hostility. And children remember those moments, even if they act like they don't. Modeling respect also means apologizing when you're wrong. This might feel counterintuitive, because many parents think apologizing diminishes their authority. But the opposite is true. When you acknowledge a mistake, maybe you lost your temper or dismissed their feelings, you're teaching them humility, accountability, and honesty. Showing them that respect is not about always being right, but about valuing the other person enough to own up when you're wrong. Over time, they learn to do the same, not just with you, but with others. Another important aspect is how you treat yourself in front of them. Children pick up on the way you talk about yourself, your work, and your life. If they hear constant self-criticism, they might adopt the same pattern. If they see you respecting your own boundaries, taking care of your health, speaking kindly about yourself, standing up for what matters, they'll internalize that lesson too. Respect for others often begins with respect for self. You are their first teacher in that regard. Even in the smallest, most ordinary interactions, you're setting an example. Thank you. Listening without interrupting, keeping promises, and acknowledging feelings. These simple acts may not feel monumental in the moment. They create the foundation for how your children learn to interact with you and the world. When you show them that respect is a daily practice, not just a lecture or rule, they begin to embody it naturally. At the heart of it, modeling respect is about planting seeds. Some may take years to grow. You might not always see immediate results. Children will test you, push boundaries, and sometimes act in ways that feel discouraging. But every time you choose to demonstrate the behavior you hope to see, you're reinforcing a powerful lesson. Respect is not demanded, it is earned, and it starts with how you treat others. Over time, those seeds take root, and what grows is not just respect for you, but a lifelong habit of respect that they'll carry into every relationship they have. 3. Set clear boundaries and consequences. Boundaries are not walls meant to push your children away. They are guardrails meant to keep the relationship steady and safe. Without them, chaos takes over. Children may not admit it, but they crave structure. They want to know where the lines are, even if they test them over and over again. Setting clear boundaries and following through with consequences is not about being harsh. It's about being consistent and fair. It is one of the most powerful ways to teach respect, not through fear, but through stability. When disrespect happens, it's tempting to either let it slide to avoid conflict or to react with anger in the heat of the moment. Neither approach helps in the long run. Letting it slide sends the message that disrespect is acceptable, while exploding only breeds resentment. Boundaries create the middle ground. They allow you to say, "I love you, but I will not tolerate this behavior." It's a firm line that separates the person from the action, showing your child that while they are valued, their behavior has consequences. Imagine a teenager shouting back when asked to complete a chore. Parent without boundaries might either give up on the request or lash out in frustration. A parent with clear boundaries calmly states, "At me is not acceptable." If it continues, you will lose phone privileges for the evening. Then, if the yelling continues, the consequences applied. This consistency teaches two lessons at once: that their actions have results and that you mean what you say. Empty threats erode respect. Consistent follow-through builds it. Boundaries also help children develop self-control. Think of it like teaching them how to drive. Without road rules, traffic lights, speed limits, driving would be dangerous. In the same way, children need behavioral limits to learn how to navigate life responsibly. They might argue, complain, or resist, but deep down, those boundaries give them a sense of safety. They know exactly what to expect, and over time, learn that respect is not just about avoiding punishment, but about building trust and harmony at home. It's important to remember that boundaries are most effective when communicated clearly and calmly, not in the middle of an emotional storm. Sitting down with your child during a calm moment and saying, "Here's what I expect, and here's what will happen if those expectations are ignored," sets the tone. For instance, if you speak disrespectfully, "I will end the conversation until you're ready to talk respectfully." This shows them the boundary and the consequence without turning it into a shouting match. Another critical part of boundaries is fairness. If consequences are too harsh, children may feel punished rather than guided. If they're too lenient, they may ignore them altogether. The key is balance. Consequences that are firm enough to matter, but fair enough to teach. For example, if a child refuses to do homework, a reasonable consequence could be losing screen time until it's complete. It connects the action with the result, making the lesson clear. One parent shared how her son constantly interrupted her while she was on work calls. Instead of yelling, she calmly set the rule: "When I'm on a call, you cannot interrupt unless it's an emergency. If you do, you'll have to wait before getting screen time." At first, he tested it. After consistently applying the consequence, he learned to respect her time. The mother didn't have to raise her voice. She just had to stay consistent. Boundaries are an act of love. They tell your children, "I care enough about you to guide you," even when it's hard. They also teach responsibility, accountability, and respect for others' needs. Over time, your children may not thank you for every rule, but they will grow into adults who understand the importance of respect and responsibility. And when that happens, they will realize that those boundaries were never about control. They were about love, guidance, and preparing them for the real world. Number 4, focus on connection over control. When children show disrespect, the first instinct for many parents is to clamp down harder, to control every word and every action in an effort to force obedience. But here's the truth: control can win compliance for a moment, rarely builds lasting respect. What truly transforms a relationship is connection. When you focus on connection over control, stop trying to dominate your child's behavior and start working to understand their heart. That shift can turn power struggles into opportunities for growth, trust, real respect. Control is tempting because it feels immediate. You can raise your voice, issue a punishment, or demand silence, and in that moment, win. But what you gain in obedience, you often lose in closeness. Children who feel controlled tend to pull away, hide their real feelings, or rebel in bigger ways later. On the other hand, when you focus on connection, you create a safe space where they feel seen and heard, even when they're upset. That sense of being understood makes them more willing to cooperate, not because they're forced to, but because they choose to. Consider this: a teenager snaps, "You don't understand me." A controlling response might be, "Don't you dare speak to me like that." But a connection-based response might sound like, "I don't like the way you said that, but I do want to understand what's going on with you." The first response ends the conversation. The second opens a door. While it may not change their attitude instantly, it shows them that your relationship matters more than winning an argument. Connection also requires curiosity. Instead of assuming disrespect is pure defiance, ask yourself, what's underneath this behavior? Maybe your child is stressed about school, embarrassed about something that happened with friends, or simply tired and overwhelmed. When you get curious instead of furious, you often uncover the real issue. For example, a young boy who kept shouting at his mother every evening wasn't actually being defiant. He was exhausted after school and didn't know how to express it. Once she shifted her routine to give him a short break before asking him to do chores, the disrespect nearly disappeared. Connection solved what control never could. Spending intentional time together also strengthens connection. When children know that you're willing to step into their world, whether that's watching a show they like, taking a walk, or just talking without judgment, they start to trust you more deeply. One father noticed his daughter growing distant and argumentative. Instead of punishing her attitude, he began inviting her to join him on short evening drives with no agenda. At first, she barely spoke, but eventually, those drives became their safe space to talk about everything from school stress to future dreams. The arguments at home began to fade, not because he forced respect, because he built it through connection. This doesn't mean letting disrespect slide. Boundaries still matter, but they're most effective when combined with connection. You can say, "I won't accept being spoken to that way," while also adding, "But I'd like to hear what's really bothering you when you're ready." This balance shows that, while behavior has limits, your relationship remains open. Respect grows naturally in that kind of environment. In the end, children don't remember every lecture or punishment, but they do remember how you made them feel. If they felt controlled, they may carry resentment. If they felt connected, they carry respect. By focusing on connection over control, you teach them a powerful lesson. Respect is not something demanded at the edge of authority. It is something nurtured in the heart of a relationship built on love, trust, and understanding. So here's the heart of the message. When your children don't respect you, you have a choice. You can let anger widen the gap, or you can use calmness. Example: boundaries and connection to build a bridge. Respect is not demanded. It is cultivated. And when you lead with patience and strength, children may not change overnight, but slowly, they will learn to look at you, not just as a parent, but as a person they admire. Because in the end, respect begins with you. And when you embody it, you teach your children the most powerful lesson of all: how to honor others by first learning to honor themselves.